What's up, people? It's been a long time. I've taken a long break off YouTube, figuring out what content should I be talking about. That's what I have been running polls on Instagram for as well. I've been trying to find things that connect deeply with you. And in my quest to find things that deeply connect with you, I stumbled upon a very contemporary topic. That was loneliness. We are middle of a pandemic, the second wave, the infamous second wave. And a lot of people are caught up at home alone. They're home alone. They've been home alone for probably a year. If your college and school hasn't been functioning, you felt this thing. And we're going to explore this emotion further. Before that, it's a subtle reminder, guys. If you haven't subscribed to this channel already, press the bell so that you get notifications about us, and like the video, engage with it. Tell me in comments, how do you find it? Chat, hello, how are you doing? All right, so loneliness is a very beautiful feeling. How does loneliness feel? Loneliness comes in disguise. किसी को शुरू में पता नहीं लगता कि भैया मैं लोनली फील कर रहा हूँ. लोगों को इनिशियली लगता है सिम्टम्स फील होते हैं. पीपल आर लाइक ओके मे बी आई एम डिप्रेस्ड. Loneliness doesn't mean you have interaction with your family, you don't have interaction with your friends, you don't have friends, you don't you're around nobody. That's not what loneliness really is. Loneliness is a feeling of it's actually a feeling of fear of judgment, fear of social situations is actually loneliness. जब आप डर के घर में बैठ जाते हो और सोशल सिचुएशन से कतराते हो, वो है लोनलीनेस. लोनलीनेस है एक हॉलोनेस. it's a feeling of emptiness within you, and it occurs to everyone. If you're alone, you're not alone. If you're feeling lonely, you're not alone, because loneliness comes at all different stages of life, to all demographies, to all kind of people. And that's about loneliness. And again, as I said, loneliness is not lack of friends. Loneliness is not lack of social situations. In fact, you can be feeling lonely when you are in a party of 200 people. You can be feeling lonely. If you are, you can be having a good bunch of friends and you could be feeling lonely. You could have people around you all the time and you could be feeling lonely. So loneliness is complex. You feel, and if you felt loneliness, you would relate to what I just said. You would have felt lonely in social situations as well. It's like, it's a tendency where you feel के बाकी सारे लोग अपनी धुन में मस्त मगन है और मैं अकेला बैठा हूँ, और मैं अकेला हूँ, मेरे कुछ डिटैचमेंट है. ये फीलिंग, दिस इज द फीलिंग ऑफ लोनलीनेस. एंड व्हेन आई पर्सनली feel lonely, a very, very, very prominent narrative in my head is that of college. There was a time in college, it's a personal story. There was a time in college, towards the end of college conditions everyone to go sit for on-campus placements. I was someone who was, always bitten by the startup bug. I always wanted to start up, and I never sat for college placements. I had to fight with my parents to do that. But, that also led me to be the odd one out of my classroom. And, my entire batch, we had a batch of 2,000 people, I think. And I remember the feeling. The feeling started with, my whole class taking I think majority, 90% of the class, 80% of the class taking the placement route, and me choosing not to sit for it. Eventually, your path and your daily habits become very different from those who've taken a different path. So that's where it began, and it settled in. I never realized that it was loneliness. You obviously अंदर अपने defense mechanism होते हैं. कोई upfront point नहीं करता लोग अगर बोलते भी हैं कि आई एम लोनली, एंड मोर ऑफन देन नॉट देर humorously joking about it. Koi, it takes a lot of courage to say, hey, I'm feeling lonely. So, and it felt weird initially. Obviously I was in denial. I was like, okay, these guys are going astray and I'm choosing a strong path, etc. It in the long run, a few months down the line, I remember I was very defensive for social interactions. In social interactions, I became a defensive person. There was something that I was guarding within myself. There were certain insecurities that I was guarding within myself. I had my guards up. एक saying होती है ना कि have your guards down. And when you have your guards down, you're a more open person. When you have your guards on, you're a closed person. I became a closed off person. I became avoidant of social situations. I wasn't open. So how did I get out of that phase? Because I think that was a year-long phase. It started as denial. I went through different stages, but it took me some courage. Towards the end of it, it took me some courage to accept that I was lonely. Who did I accept it to? Who I had to accept it to myself. And when I'm caught in my head, how do I really speak to myself? One hack and one habit that I developed back then, and that's continued till now, is the habit of talking to myself in a practical way. When you're talking to yourself, abhi agar main apne aap se baat karun, itna solidly baat nahi hogi. But when you have a paper in front of you, when you're taking notes, when you're journaling, when you're writing a diary, that's when you're actually talking to yourself. What's right in front of you, written by you, that's when a conversation happens. And that's where if you can confide in your diary, if you can be brutally honest with your diary, that's when the real tough talk happens. That's when you accept what's going on within you. That's the first sign of progress. That's the first sign of acceptance, and progress only begins after acceptance. So that is a habit that I picked up. Then I realized that, okay, I am lonely. Not like I didn't have classmates. I went to college. I had friends who I ate lunch with, who I ate dinner with, who I went for walks with, who I prepared for exams with. But I was lonely. Number one step, accept. Best way to accept, talk to yourself. Confide in yourself. How do you do that? Write diary and be brutally honest. You're not writing your diary to put it up on Facebook. You're not writing your diary to make a blog out of it. You're writing your diary to have tough chats with yourself. Burn the fucking page after that. But when you're writing, be brutally honest. You're not keeping any secrets with you. So that's my story. Eventually, that path of accepting and coming out of it, and having the courage that, hey, I'm lonely, led me to start a sort of like a creative / mental health startup. I'm not going to talk much about it, but certain realizations came to me when I was, building that mental health startup. And that's what I want to share today about loneliness. The thing, as I said, and I have certain notes about it. Loneliness is not when you have no social contact with people. Loneliness is a feeling that can also come when you are with people. It's a fear of rejection. It's a fear of being alone. It might sound, contradictory, but it's actually a fear of being alone. Akele nahi rehna chahta main. And the answer to loneliness is not that you randomly throw yourself into social situations. That doesn't help feel better either. If you're feeling lonely and you just say, if you and you just agree to any social situation that comes your way, you don't feel satisfied. You don't feel fulfilled. That happens to so many people. You rather feel desperate. So throwing yourself in a social situation is not the answer to loneliness either. Loneliness happens because of a mismatch in your personal narrative. You expect something out of your life and reality is something else. This void between expectation and reality, that emptiness is loneliness. Loneliness is the feeling of feeling of inadequacy. कि complete नहीं है कुछ. Incompleteness. That's what lonely. And as I said, if you're feeling alone, you're not alone who's feeling lonely. There are a lot of people who are feeling lonely. Loneliness, prolonged loneliness, can be fatal. Fatal in the sense, not fatal, but it can be dangerous. In fact, there are stats that say loneliness increases your risk of dying by 30%. It lowers your immune system. It can, sometimes even when it lowers your immune system, a lot of illnesses crop in. So yeah, it's kind of dangerous. And right now we're in a public health crisis, that is COVID. Within this, there's another public health crisis, that is loneliness. So it's serious. You got to accept it. This is serious. What can you do? I'm gonna talk about the basics, and rather the most obvious parts up front. Be kind. Seek meaningful relationships. You can be lonely when you don't have the right kind of people around you, but when you have meaningful conversations, when you're seeking to connect with other people, opening up, that's when you're likely to have deeper relationships. Deep relationships is what solves loneliness. That's what you need to have. But certain people are also okay with themselves, and they call it solitude. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude. How do you get to solitude? As per my personal experience, there was a time when I really needed relationships, and I was needy, and I wasn't really getting those relationships. I was throwing myself in all kind of relationships, and I wasn't getting the getting such relationships. But then I became okay with being alone, okay with myself, okay with dealing with my own thoughts, okay with my own system, with my own diary. That's when I realized that people of all kinds would come to me and confide in me, because I was okay with myself. You got to be okay with yourself. Find a way to be okay with yourself. The biggest hack I've found in my life is write a diary. Acceptance via journaling. Biggest hack, biggest life hack. So that's one. Detach yourself from the idea of being at that cool pub with the cool gang. Accept yourself, be comfortable with yourself, and the moment you are that, you will be included. When you are not seeking is when you get it. Now, this is not scientific advice, but this is something that I've seen happen with me and seen happen with a lot of people. This can go to a different tangent. That is the art of detachment. When you detach, that's when it comes to you. Stop seeking, it'll come to you. Okay, anyway, so now another part, that is solitude. Solitude क्या होता है और loneliness क्या होता है? Solitude is when you're comfortable with yourself and you're enjoying your company. Alone time, when done right, is solitude, and people really like it. There are benefits of solitude as well. Don't be scared to be alone. Don't be scared of solitude. Solitude is in fact empowering. Why is solitude empowering? So when you understand humans are social animals, right? And when you have multiple people around you, there is always a part of your brain that is worried about what these folks around me are thinking about me. When you're with people in a room, there is always a part of your brain that's thinking about your reputation amongst the people who are with you, even though you're not directly interacting with them. If I'm in a classroom, I'm worried about what my classmates are thinking, even though I've not spoken to them in a week. That's how socially vulnerable humans are. So what happens when you find alone time? When you find alone time, it can be empowering, because you are devoid of that social reputational factor. In fact, studies have shown that when you consume an experience alone, when you are alone and when you're consuming an experience, when you're experiencing something alone, your memory of that experience is more accurate than if you experience that something with someone else. If I'm watching a movie alone, I'm likely to absorb it much better than if I'm watching it with my girlfriend. That brings me to the concept of movie dates. There are people who go for movie dates. It's a movie date because you're going with someone and enjoying it with someone. You're paying attention to two things, movie as well as that someone, right? So when you're watching a movie, you're taking it alone in the hall, you're absorbing it more accurately. When you're thinking about a problem, you're assessing it more critically than if you're thinking about the problem in a meeting, in a social meeting. Humans के साथ problem पता है क्या है? We're automatically group thinking. We auto group think. Group think is this phenomenon where because of everyone thinking a certain way, your opinion also tends to align with that group, because the need to fit in is so strong. Even though you differ originally, you will bring yourself to align with the group. That's how mimetic we are, or ape-like we are, as humans. So we auto group think. But when you're alone, you can actually critically assess a situation. What else? When we're with people, we're obviously worrying about our reputation. What else? In social situations, the influence of other people, the influence of pleasing someone in a certain group or pleasing the other person, is so strong that you're not able to think as critically, think, as accurately. So that's obviously a benefit of solitude. What else? Now, the third thing, that I discovered back then was something that my dad reminded me of. There was this time that dad and I were taking a walk, and he was talking about his day and age. He was like, "Abhi tum log TV dekhte ho, हम लोग ट्रांजिस्टर सुनते थे, रेडियो सुनते थे." एंड ही वाज लाइक, उससे पहले पता है क्या होता था? उससे पहले जब टीवी रेडियो इतना पॉपुलर वगैरह नहीं था, टीवी और रेडियो जब आप सुन रहे हो और देख रहे हो, या इंटरनेट पे हो या फ़ोन पे हो, व्हाट यू डूइंग इज यू बेसिकली कंज्यूमिंग, राइट? In fact, reading a book is also consuming. So that's how this is what pastimes have always been, right? Right now, though, we're always glued to the phone, but back then, watching TV, reading a book were considered pastimes. My dad was like, there was this phase, and what creative people would do when they're alone, they would sit down and write. They would write poetry. That's how these were their pastimes. Pastimes was, somehow correlated with loneliness. How do you really beat loneliness, or how do you spend alone time? People used to write. People used to create. People used to paint. And I think that creation bit is sort of lost. This is something, that I've spoken about in a previous video, that is the mindset shift that you need in your 20s. We've lost the art of creating. It used to be prominent before, but over the last few decades, the balance has gone so bad that we're just consuming 24/7. The consumers economy, consumerism, sorry. Yeah, but we're now in a creator's economy. I hope, people can take up creation as well. What certain artists did, to beat loneliness. A lot of artists have always been loneliness. History padhoge to tumhe pata lagega, bahut sare artists, felt that emotion and, describe it very beautifully as well. Someone described the entire scenario as there is this feeling of community that we want, right? A lot of people have been able to substitute that community feeling forever, like, 24/7 community feeling, 24/7 being with someone feeling. They've been able to substitute it with creativity. So if you're creating something, you're less likely to feel lonely. I'm not saying just, keep yourself busy for the heck of it. I'm not saying movie dekh lo. I'm not saying book pad lo. I'm not saying music sun lo. I'm saying create something. And that creation can be anything. For that creation plug, I want you to go and check out the video that said the mindset shift you need in your 20s. That would be a perfect sequel to this video. And at that note, I want to end this. This was fun, guys. I hope you liked it. Take care. Good night. See you. I'll see you another Wednesday. Bye-bye.